He's Albert Breer. How are you, Albert?
I'm surprised you didn't play the victors for me there.
No, come on.
You're losing your edge.
No, look, Albert, look, you understand. Hey, look, Pete Thamel was on earlier, just 20 minutes ago, thinks that Michigan's going to get one and done. So, I mean, you know how checks are written and they can't be cashed. I just was having fun. You know what I mean? I was just having some fun on a day where just a snapshot in time. I had the ability to have some fun. That's all.
Not much fun to be had when it comes to Ohio State basketball these days. I'll give you that.
Now, seriously though, but your Twitter timeline in years, you were all over Ohio State basketball when you were winning it all.
I mean, when it was Greg Oden and Mike Connolly. Actually, I don't even know if Twitter existed then. More recently, Jared Sullinger and Evan Turner, and I mean, it's Thad Matta had a really, really good 10-year run there. And, D'Angelo Russell left, and there wasn't much else to speak of after he was gone. And it's certainly been better times for Ohio State basketball, no question about it.
Let's talk football. Albert, why is Tony Romo still a Dallas Cowboy? Walk me through what's happening here.
Because I don't think that there's any motivation to get anything done. And this isn't the Cowboys doing wrong by Romo. Because I don't think the two suitors, their situation isn't going to change. There's nobody out there for the Texans to go after that they'd be willing to pay the price for. I think the one guy who would interest them would be Jimmy Garoppolo, but the price is way too high if he's available at all. And the Broncos have Paxton Lynch and Trevor Siemian, who they're comfortable with. So neither of the suitors are going to go anywhere. And now we've basically got a staring contest between the Cowboys and the Broncos and the Texans. And my feeling is the Texans are motivated to make a run at Tony Romo. The Broncos are more in the kind of kick the tires category, and the Cowboys are sitting there saying, well, this contract actually is tradable. He's only due $14 million this year. That's a below-average rate for a starting quarterback. So you should want to trade for him, but neither of the teams out there are motivated to do it because they know eventually he's going to be released. And again, there's no tension point here. There's no deadline.
Well, when is that deadline? When is it? The draft?
The deadline would be the beginning of. I mean, to me, would be the beginning of the off-season program, which is the middle of April. And so, if you're the Cowboys, you probably don't want to make it awkward and have Tony Romo walking back through that door. Which,
okay.
If you're Romo and you want to be released, you would show up, right? Like you would show up and you would make it awkward. And so I think that would be the first natural deadline. And that's not for a month from now. So that's kind of where we are. The two teams are staring at each other. And the next time we'll see them all under one roof is at the owners' meetings in 2 weeks.
Yeah. And Jerry will be asked all about that. That's interesting. So the first one will be the owners' meeting, but that's just, a moment where you got to interesting.
Yeah, I mean,
but
as long as you can
off-season,
keep answering the question.
Right.
The off-season program's a real one. I mean, the off-season program is, if you're the Cowboys and you're trying to say, okay, this is Dak Prescott's team now, do you want number 9 walking back through that door?
And he'll stroll in there, right? He'll just stroll in there with
hell, I would, right?
I know, with a merry band of reporters in tow, and I guess Dallas is making it look like they can keep both because really it's not as if they missed out on anybody on free agency that they would have spent the money on, right? I mean,
right. And I mean, they're going to have to take a cap hit either way, and so there's just kind of there's a cap hold there. And if they're going to designate him a June 1st cut, which would which would clear a bunch of money for this year, well, they've got to carry his number until June 1st anyway, even if he's already been released. And so it's just, I mean, I think we'll probably look back at this in the fall and laugh, and
sure.
He'll be playing for the Texans or Broncos but right now there's no deadline to motivate anything. And so the Cowboys are doing, what I think that is the smart thing to do, which is you've got a commodity, see if you can get something for it.
And interesting, Albert Breer of MMQB here on the Rich Eisen Show, is there's the ripple effects that if Romo goes to Denver, then Trevor Siemian might be available for quarterback needy teams, which right now, I mean, the team in New York wearing green, that's got a bright neon sign. What are the Jets' plans right here at quarterback as we're sitting here waiting for everything to shake free?
Sure. Well, first thing I think is they would absolutely call the Broncos on Trevor Siemian if Romo were to sign in Denver. I know Cutler's name has been out there. I'm going to give you a couple other names that I think are interesting that would be veteran additions there. Chase Daniels one, but the one I think you want to take a look at is Josh McCown. Like Jay Cutler, he has background with Jeremy Bates. He played for Jeremy Bates in Chicago, who's the new quarterbacks coach of the Jets. On top of that, he'd be an ideal guy to put around the younger quarterbacks, which, of course, is the concern with Cutler, right? And so if you're going to have young quarterbacks there and you're a rebuilding team, you want to have a guy who's going to be on board with bringing young guys along. And I think Josh McCown actually fits that profile perfectly. And so McCown would be a guy to watch, I think, from a veteran standpoint. I would not rule out Christian Hackenberg, being very much in the mix for that starting job over the next few months. One of the things that's really been put on Jeremy Bates' plate is go ahead and figure out if Christian Hackenberg is fixable. And so that's going to be a part of it. And then, I think they'll be looking, of course, at guys like Mitch Trubisky and Deshaun Kaiser and Deshaun Watson with that 6th overall pick. And so they're looking at all options. I'd anticipate they'll bring in a veteran at some point. I think they'll be looking at the rookies. But again, I wouldn't rule out Hackenberg as an option.
And how about the Patriots, man? I mean,
something else,
seriously, they signed Gilmore and they trade for Cooks, but still have Butler in their back pocket. Well, they go ahead and sign. I know Coney Ely had a down year last year in Carolina, but he's played on a big stage before and had Carolina beaten Denver in Super Bowl 50. Ely, with his 3 sacks, would have been MVP. I mean, they are the favorites. There's no question about it entering 2017. And that's why I'm wondering if Jerry's sitting there thinking, all right, that turns the heat up on 2 AFC teams that might be able to join that battle if they had Romo. That's what I'm just wondering how, because they also have Butler in their back pocket and Garoppolo in their back pocket should they want to replenish any of the draft picks here.
Yeah, there's no question. What's interesting about this to me and what New England's done, they've always sort of taken advantage of other teams' situations, right? Like they've always cherry-picked those. Like, this team has this problem, this team has that problem, let's go and take advantage of them. This year, the difference is this year they came into the offseason with $65 million in cap space, which is an incredible amount for a team coming off of a Super Bowl championship. So what do? Okay, they find a disgruntled player somewhere else, Brandon Cooks. They trade for him. They go to Indianapolis. They see that Jack Doyle just got paid. Okay, we'll take Dwayne Allen's contract off your hands. They go to Carolina. They see Mario Addison just got signed, got an extension. Okay, so that means you're probably not going to be paying Coney Ely. In each one of these cases, they're taking advantage of somebody else's situation, which I think is a fascinating element of all of this. And I certainly think this does put the heat up. This does turn the heat up on everybody else in the AFC, where it looked last year like the Patriots were lapping the field. And now if you're in one of these positions, say you're Bill O'Brien in Houston, and your job might be on the line this year, I think it does put a little extra on there. Like, if we're going to keep pace with these guys, if we're going to be competitive with these guys, if we're going to get in a playoff situation and not be at risk of losing by 30 to these guys, then we got to be aggressive as well. And so certainly they're the lead dog, as far as this offseason has gone, coming off of a Super Bowl championship. And you're right. I think it does put a certain amount of pressure on everybody else. So
Garrett is the guy, right, for the Browns, and then we'll see how everything else goes? That's what
conceptually, here's what you want to look at. The Browns have had this discussion really over the last 7 or 8 months, and when it really crystallized, Myles Garrett's going to be the guy. They've talked conceptually about doing what Oakland did in 2014. And you remember, Oakland had there was a lot of discussion about Oakland spending the 5th overall pick that year on a quarterback. Well, they decided that there was a generational defensive talent there that they couldn't pass up on. And so they take Khalil Mack with the 5th overall pick, then get Derek Carr with their second-round pick. So now they've got their quarterback and their defensive cornerstone for the next 10 to 15 years. The Browns have talked about going into this draft with that approach, where you use that number 1 overall pick on a defensive cornerstone, Myles Garrett, and then you take the 12th pick and you use it as currency to go and get a quarterback. Now, I know they'd like that to be Jimmy Garoppolo, but one way or another, I think they're going to be using that pick as a piece to try and go get the answer at quarterback. And again, the idea is just like the Raiders came out of 2014 with Khalil Mack and Derek Carr, they'd like to come out of this offseason with Myles Garrett and the quarterback of the future.
Albert, take care. We'll have you back
All
on
right,
soon.
thanks, Rich.
You're the man.
To
Thanks.
the tournament.
Thanks, bud. Appreciate that. That's Albert Breer of the MMQB.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.